Thanks, Debbie, for sharing God's holy word this morning. You were scheduled to do that. You weren't scheduled to also be a fill-in usher. So thanks for doing both today. In that reading, we see Jesus is a true master at addressing his critics. This is a text, I think, that he is at his best, dealing with those who are critical of him. He said, "For John came neither eating nor drinking." And they said that John the Baptist, he's a demon. And the Son of Man, Jesus, came eating and drinking, and you said, "Look, he's a glutton, a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners." Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. So Jesus turns the words of the critics back on them. He questions their integrity. Jesus said, "You criticized John, saying he was a demon because he would not eat or drink or feast. Yet you criticize me for being a glutton and a drunkard because I do exactly that." He says you can't have it both ways. But you want it both ways. Integrity. The Oxford English Dictionary says, integrity is that quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness, a state of being whole and undivided. Those critics, I think, were divided. They wanted to have both sides of the equation. Jesus lived a life characterized by integrity. And he calls us to do the same. As we walk in the footsteps of Jesus, we are called to integrity. Do you have critics in your life? How do you deal with them? Some critics want to tell us how they can do a better job than we can. That they're the expert and we aren't. Don't many of us coach the Toronto Maple Leafs from our chair in the living room? Seriously. How many of us yell at the screen? Say, do that, or don't do that. It's an entertaining diversion, isn't it? But there's a more serious trend in our society, especially with parents and grandparents who have kids in sports. I'm sure we've all seen referees being abused even by over-aggressive parents in kids' games, treating that at bat as if it was the last game of the World Series. For that reason, there are now signed sport parent code of conduct documents. The parents in some sports have to sign to protect the referees. Integrity. Hearing the criticism of Jesus earlier in the service, as Debbie read it, I'm reminded of a timeless speech. It's entitled "The Man in the Arena Speech." Look it up sometime on YouTube. Do you know what it was given by Teddy Roosevelt? The Man in the Arena. Part of it goes like this. It's not the critic who counts. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives violently, who errs, who comes up short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends of himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place should never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat. The man in the arena. Jesus, of course, was for 3 years in the arena of earthly ministry. And there were those, including his own disciples, who wanted to tell him, do it this way, don't do it this way. We have a better plan. But he was in the arena. Some of you who know or watch virtually this summer, I'm doing a series of sermons on a particular theme, the 7 grandfather teachings, applying traditional indigenous teaching to Christian scripture. The tradition has it that these are the principles of character that the Anishinaabe shall live by. And they are love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom. According to the story long ago, a messenger was sent who came and realized people were living in a negative way that impacted their thoughts, decisions, and actions. Some had hate for others, displayed disrespectful actions, were afraid, told lies, or cheated. A child was chosen and was taught the 7 grandfather sayings. Today we are considering integrity, which is represented by the raven. The teaching on integrity focuses on knowing and accepting who we are and reminds us not to try to be who we are not. It also teaches us how we have been given the ability to survive and thrive. Integrity, to be who we are. Over the years at Walton, some of you will remember that we had 20 interns, student ministers. We have over the years had many staff, from caretakers to associate ministers, from Sunday school coordinators to student ministers. As I look back and I think about those people, and many of them touched our lives richly, and we miss them. But an essential key to whether they succeeded or not was their integrity, fulfilling their word, doing what they said they would do. When I was more actively involved in teaching student ministers, I used to say half of life is showing up. Well, Woody Allen is credited with that saying originally, and he said 80% of life is showing up. But whether it's 50 or 80%, It's about doing what you said you would do. Dress up and show up and be on time. We are at the height of the summer wedding season, and we have more weddings booked than we've had for many years. And interesting, more weddings booked here in the sanctuary than we've had for many years as well. And we're planning for this season and the busy fall season. It's fascinating and it's enjoyable working with these couples. I wonder sometimes to myself, who will and will not make the relationship work? I often wonder, especially the quite young couples, how they will do in life. Marriage is many things. One critical factor in marriage that often is neglected is that marriage is an economic union. And facing a wedding, you realize it's an industry. Each vendor will attempt to upsell couples. What they do say yes to and what they say no to for their big day is critical. Where are they putting their money? That day they sign their license. Because I think in some ways it sets what the future is going to be like for them as a couple. I've seen 3 huge stretch limos lined up on the other side of this wall in the parking lot, but no professional photographer. I've seen a TV quality professional video crew with multiple staff and no flowers. I've seen people spend up to $5,000 decorating this sanctuary for a wedding, but I have only 30 guests. What are their priorities? Where do they think it's important? What does it say about their relationship? The integrity about who they are as a couple. What values with how they spend their money? And that goes with all of us. You see where we put our money, that tells us what we value the most. That integrity. Is it about the couple or is it about the show? From the windows in front of our workspaces down here in the offices, we can look out into the church parking lot. But those who are in the parking lot cannot see back into the offices. Just to warn you, if you come up the back stairs, you see the beautiful reflecting window and you're going to check your hair or put on your lipstick or whatever, we can see you. It's a protective film on the windows because the sun was so strong coming into the offices. Well, I'll often be working at my computer as I wait for a 7 p.m. appointment with a wedding couple. I'm working there and I see a person arrive and it's 6:45. There's only one of the pair. About 7:10, the person will come into my office to apologize that their other half hasn't arrived yet. There's no call or text to explain why. Then they go back outside to wait for the other person. When the latecomer eventually arrives about 7:25, I watch what takes place outside the office in the parking lot. Most times, not all, but most times it's obvious this is not the first time this has happened. When they do come into the office, sometimes I can read the body language, and I suggest maybe they need to go and walk or go and sit on the front benches and have a few moments to sort things out before they come in and plan their wedding. A career coach writes better than I could with my own words. This career coach says, like it or not, being on time matters. In fact, it matters a lot. It communicates to others whether they can trust and rely on you. It gives others insight into how you view them and how you view yourself. Being chronically late can have countless unintended consequences, and it's simply a small thing that can have a huge and lasting negative impact on your career. This is a career coach, but I would say on your whole life. By contrast, learning the importance of punctuality or being consistent on time or even early is an incredible, simple way to set yourself apart from the crowd. It allows you to make a good instant impression, and you can reach your goals faster by helping others see you are someone worth listening to. Integrity. We think of it as a concept, and we read about it from the Psalms as we open the service. The scripture talks about integrity, but how do we live that out day to day? John the Baptist was a demon. They criticized him. He wore very humble clothes. He lived a very Spartan life. He lived out in the wilderness. He existed on honey and locusts. And they criticized him. Jesus, we know, went to the feasts. The first miracle was a wedding banquet. The first miracle, what took place at a wedding feast. But they said he was a drunkard and a glutton. And he also would eat with those who were on the margins of society. The tax collector, he would be associated with the leper. Yet they criticized him. Where is the integrity? Jack O'Keefe writes, spiritual integrity is the combination of a state and a quality. Spiritual integrity is a state of being undivided, together with the quality of brutal self-honesty. Spiritual integrity demands a considerable depth of self-awareness and uncompromising willingness to be authentic. Authentic. Again and again, that's what we hear people want in relationships. They want it to be authentic. Today's grandfather teaching is about living the authentic life. The teaching on integrity focuses on knowing and accepting who you are and reminds us to try not to be someone who we are not. Do you know the word poser? To pretend to be somebody you're not, to be part of the culture, to fit in. The phrase, to thine own self be true. You probably know that phrase. And you're probably thinking, where in the Bible is it? Well, you won't actually find it, but you will find that sentiment. And it's very true, but it's actually something Shakespeare said in Hamlet. To thine own self be true. Do not try to be who you are not. Here are some other thoughts of other Christian writers on integrity. Dr. S.M. Davis wrote, "Integrity is not just what people see. Integrity is what you are." Rick Izzell says, "Integrity is a godlike life of consistency, sincerity with no deception or pretense. Integrity's overriding quality is wholeness." And Don Pettinelli says, "Integrity is being true to yourself and having the courage to admit when you're wrong." Integrity. In Psalm 25, verse 21, it says, "Let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait for you." The psalmist says, "Let integrity and uprightness preserve me." The sense that being full of integrity, it's a preserving quality. The challenge for all of us is to walk in the steps of Jesus. None of us can be Jesus, but to walk in Jesus' steps. And one aspect of doing that is to live with integrity.